You're 38 years old. You and your spouse bring home a combined $112,000 a year. You drive a 3-year-old SUV with a payment you can technically afford. Your kids go to a decent school in a neighborhood with sidewalks and a Starbucks on the corner. You've got about $45,000 in your 401k, maybe $8,000 in savings on a good month, and you genuinely believe you're doing okay. You're middle class. You made it. That's what you tell yourself when you pull into the driveway of the house you're renting because you can't quite scrape together a down payment. That's what you repeat when your credit card statement comes in a little higher than expected because your daughter needed braces and your car needed new tires in the same month. You're middle class. You're comfortable. Except here's the thing. At 2:30 in the morning, when you can't sleep and you're running the numbers in your head for the 100th time, a different truth creeps in. You're one layoff away from catastrophe. One major medical bill from wiping out everything you've built. One economic downturn from losing the lifestyle you've convinced yourself is stable. You look around at your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors, and everyone seems to be living the same way. Nice cars, decent clothes, annual vacations financed on credit cards that get paid off eventually. And you think this must be normal. This must be what middle class looks like in America. But what if I told you that what you're experiencing isn't the middle class at all? What if the entire category you've placed yourself in is an illusion designed to keep you spending, keep you borrowing, and keep you exactly where you are? My name is Orion Invests, and I spend way too much time analyzing the gap between what people think about money and what's actually true. If you're someone who works hard, plays by the rules, and still feels like you're running on a financial treadmill going nowhere, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. What I'm about to share with you might be uncomfortable, but it might also be exactly what you need to hear. Here's what we're going to unpack together in the next 20 minutes. I'm going to show you why millions of families who believe they're middle class are actually living a carefully constructed illusion. We're going to break down the exact trap that keeps people looking successful while building nothing underneath. I'll show you the real numbers, the psychology behind why this trap is so effective, and most importantly, what you can actually do to escape it. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why your parents' middle class and your middle class are completely different economic realities, and why recognizing this difference is the first step toward building something real. Let's start with a question that seems simple, but actually isn't. What does it mean to be middle class? If you asked your grandparents, they'd probably describe something like this: owning a home outright or close to it, having enough savings to handle emergencies without panic, being able to retire at a reasonable age without depending on anyone, and leaving something behind for your kids. That was middle class. A cushion, a foundation, actual wealth accumulation happening slowly but steadily in the background of a normal life. Now let's talk about what middle class means today for most families. According to the Pew Research Center, the median income for middle class households in 2024 was around $106,000 for a family of 3. Sounds decent, right? Here's the problem. That same research shows that nearly 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and that includes households earning over $100,000 annually. A 2024 Bankrate survey found that 56% of Americans cannot cover an unexpected $1,000 expense with savings. Let me put that in perspective. The majority of people who consider themselves middle class would have to go into debt to handle a car repair or an emergency room visit. That's not a cushion. That's a tightrope. The Federal Reserve's survey of consumer finances shows that the median net worth for Americans between 35 and 44 is approximately $135,000. But here's what that number hides. For most people in that category, the vast majority of that net worth is home equity they can't actually access without selling their house or taking on more debt. Liquid savings, investments, actual accessible wealth. The median for that same age group is closer to $27,000. $27,000 is what stands between the average middle-class family and financial crisis, and it gets worse. Housing costs have consumed an ever larger share of income over the past 4 decades. In 1980, the median home price was roughly 3 times the median household income. Today, that ratio is over 7-to-1 in many metropolitan areas. The National Association of Realtors reported in 2024 that the median existing home price hit $419,000, while the median household income sat around $78,000. You don't need a calculator to see that math doesn't work the way it used to. Healthcare costs have increased over 300% since 1980 when adjusted for inflation. Childcare costs have nearly doubled since the 1990s. College tuition has increased 1,200% since 1980. Every major expense that defines middle-class life has exploded, while wages have grown at a fraction of that pace. But here's where it gets really interesting. Despite all of this, consumer spending has continued to climb. Lifestyle inflation hasn't just kept pace with income growth, it's exceeded it. And this is where we arrive at what I call the fake middle-class trap. The fake middle-class trap is not about being irresponsible. It's not about buying too many lattes or avocado toast or whatever dismissive thing people say to avoid addressing the real problem. The fake middle-class trap is a systemic design that encourages families to perform middle-class life without building middle-class wealth. Here's how it works. Step 1 is income growth creates an illusion of progress. You get a raise, you move up at work, your household income climbs from $70,000 to $90,000 to $110,000. Each jump feels like advancement. You're doing better than you were 5 years ago. You're doing better than your parents were at your age in raw dollar terms. But here's what's happening underneath that feeling of progress. The definition of middle-class lifestyle has inflated faster than your income. The things that signal middle-class membership, the neighborhood, the car, the school district, the activities for your kids, all cost more than they did a decade ago. So your income goes up, and your lifestyle goes up, and the gap between them stays exactly the same or gets worse. Step 2 is debt becomes the bridge. This is where the trap tightens. The gap between middle-class income and middle-class lifestyle has to be filled somehow. For most families, that bridge is debt. Auto loans averaging over $700 a month for new vehicles, credit card balances that get paid down but never fully eliminated. Home equity lines used for renovations, vacations, and covering unexpected expenses. The average American household now carries over $104,000 in debt when you include mortgages and over $7,900 in credit card debt specifically. But here's the insidious part. This debt doesn't feel like distress. It feels normal. It feels like what everyone does. Your neighbor has a similar car payment. Your coworker just put their kitchen renovation on a home equity line. The debt is normalized to the point where carrying it feels like participation in middle-class life rather than a warning sign. Step 3 is identity becomes tied to consumption. This is the psychological lock on the trap. After years of living this pattern, your sense of who you are becomes connected to the lifestyle you're maintaining. The house, the neighborhood, the activities, the vacations, these aren't just things you have. They become things you are. A middle-class parent, a successful professional, someone who provides. Pulling back, downsizing, driving an older car, these choices don't just feel financially painful. They feel like identity threats, like admitting failure. And this is exactly what makes the trap so effective. Step 4 is the system profits from your participation. Banks make money from your mortgage interest and your car loan interest and your credit card interest. Retailers design marketing around lifestyle aspiration. Social media amplifies comparison and inadequacy. The entire economic ecosystem benefits from you spending right up to the edge of your income and slightly beyond. You're not failing the system. You're feeding it exactly as designed. Let me give you a concrete example. Meet Jennifer and Marcus. They're both 41, living in suburban Atlanta, combined household income of $135,000. On paper, they're doing great. Better than most. They bought a house in 2018 for $320,000. Their mortgage is about $1,850 a month. They have 2 kids in middle school and high school. They drive a 2022 Honda Pilot and a 2021 Toyota Camry. Their car payments combined are $920 a month. They contribute enough to their 401ks to get the company match, about 4% each. They have around $80,000 saved for retirement combined. They carry about $6,500 in credit card debt that fluctuates but never quite disappears. They have roughly $11,000 in savings. Now let's run the actual math on where they'll end up if nothing changes. Their combined monthly take-home pay after taxes, insurance, and retirement contributions is about $8,200. After mortgage, cars, groceries, utilities, insurance, gas, kids' activities, minimum debt payments, and basic life, they're left with maybe $400 in actual discretionary money each month, some months less. The credit card debt never gets eliminated because unexpected expenses keep hitting faster than they can pay it down. That $80,000 in retirement savings growing at an optimistic 7% average return will be worth approximately $430,000 by the time they hit 65. That sounds okay until you realize that financial planners recommend having 10 to 12 times your ending salary saved for retirement. At their income, they'd need $1.3 to $1.6 million. They're on track for 1/3 of that. And here's the part that really gets me. Jennifer and Marcus aren't doing anything wrong by conventional standards. They're not buying luxury goods. They're not taking extravagant trips. They live in a standard suburban house and drive reliable cars. They're doing exactly what they were told to do, and they're still falling behind. Because the trap isn't about individual choices, it's about a system where the lifestyle markers of middle-class membership cost more than middle-class incomes can sustainably support. Now let's look at what could have been different. Imagine Jennifer and Marcus had made different choices starting at age 30. Same income, but instead of a $320,000 house, they bought a $220,000 house in a less prestigious but still safe neighborhood. Instead of 2 newer cars, they drove reliable used vehicles with no payments. Let's say they invested the difference, roughly $1,000 a month, into low-cost index funds. That $1,000 a month from age 30 to 65, assuming 7% average returns, would grow to approximately $1.9 million. The choice between looking middle class and being middle class is worth over $1 million in this scenario. That's not a typo. The cost of the performance is 7 figures. Yes, but here's the thing. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad about choices you've already made. The past is done. What I'm trying to show you is how the trap works, so you can see it clearly and make different choices going forward. Let's talk about the psychology, because understanding why people fall into this trap is essential to escaping it. Human beings are social creatures, and we evolved to pay attention to status signals. In hunter-gatherer societies, status signals were about actual resources, actual capabilities, actual contributions to the group. In modern consumer society, status signals have been almost entirely disconnected from actual resources. You can lease a luxury car with poor credit. You can live in an expensive neighborhood while having negative net worth. You can project success while building nothing underneath. This disconnection is exploited relentlessly by marketers who understand that people will spend money they don't have to feel like people they're not. Social media has amplified this exponentially. You're no longer just comparing yourself to your neighbors and coworkers. You're comparing yourself to a curated highlight reel of everyone's best moments. And your brain, which evolved for small group comparison, cannot handle this constant exposure to aspirational content without it affecting your behavior. There's also something called hedonic adaptation at play here. This is the psychological phenomenon where you quickly adapt to improvements in your circumstances and reset to your baseline level of satisfaction. You get the nicer house, and within 6 months, it just feels like your house. The pleasure fades, but the cost remains. So you reach for the next upgrade, the next improvement, the next signal that you're still making progress. The treadmill continues. Add to this the sunk cost fallacy. You've already built a lifestyle at a certain level. Scaling back feels like admitting those past purchases were mistakes, like losing something you've earned. So you keep maintaining the facade even when the numbers don't support it. Because the psychological cost of acknowledging the trap feels higher than the financial cost of staying in it. The final psychological element is what I call security theater. Most families in the fake middle class believe they have more security than they actually do. The house feels like stability, but the equity isn't liquid. The 401k feels like retirement, but it won't cover 25 years of post-work life. The job feels secure, but layoffs happen without warning. The appearance of security becomes a substitute for actual security. And because everyone around you is engaged in the same theater, it feels validated. Normal? Correct. So what do you actually do about this? How do you escape a trap that's designed to be invisible and that everyone around you is willingly participating in? The first thing is radical honesty about where you actually stand, not where you feel like you stand, where the numbers say you are. Calculate your actual net worth, total assets minus total liabilities. And be honest about what's liquid and what's not. Home equity you can't access doesn't help you in an emergency. Look at your savings rate, the percentage of your income that's actually being invested and building wealth. If that number is under 15%, you're likely falling behind no matter how comfortable your lifestyle feels. Look at your debt-to-income ratio, your total monthly debt payments divided by your gross monthly income. If that number is over 35%, you're financially fragile regardless of your income level. The second step is rejecting lifestyle inflation as the default. Every time your income increases, your first instinct should not be to improve your lifestyle. Your first instinct should be to improve your wealth. This doesn't mean never enjoying your money. It means creating a ratio that actually builds something. A good rule: for every dollar your income increases, invest at least 50 cents before spending anything on lifestyle upgrades. This alone will dramatically change your financial trajectory over time. The third step is building what I call structural resilience. This means creating financial systems that protect you regardless of what happens. An emergency fund of at least 6 months of expenses in actual liquid savings, not theoretical money. Cash you can access tomorrow. Insurance that actually covers catastrophic scenarios. Disability insurance in particular is criminally underutilized by middle-class families, multiple income streams, even small ones. A side skill that could generate income if your main job disappeared. Relationships and networks that represent real social capital, not just social media connections. The fourth step is decoupling your identity from your consumption. This is the hardest one because it requires psychological work. You have to actually examine why certain purchases feel so important, what you're really trying to signal, what need you're trying to meet. Often, the things we spend the most on are compensating for something that money can't actually fix. The expensive car might be covering insecurity about career success. The big house might be performing stability you don't feel. The fancy vacations might be trying to prove to yourself that your life is working. None of this is wrong or bad. It's human. But it's expensive. And becoming aware of it gives you choices you didn't have when it was operating unconsciously. The fifth step is finding community outside the fake middle-class bubble. The trap is reinforced by social consensus. Everyone around you lives this way, so it feels normal and correct. But there are communities of people building wealth quietly. People who prioritize financial independence over financial performance. People who measure success by net worth growth rather than lifestyle upgrades. Finding these people, even online, even in books and podcasts, helps break the spell of consensus that keeps the trap invisible. At the end of the day, this isn't really about money, it's about freedom. Real financial security isn't a number in an account, it's having options. The option to leave a toxic job without panic. The option to handle emergencies without going into debt. The option to help your kids without destroying your retirement. The option to say no to things that don't align with your values because you're not dependent on maintaining a fragile house of cards. The fake middle class has none of these options. They have the appearance of success without the substance. They have lifestyle without wealth. They have membership in a club that doesn't actually exist. The real middle class, the one your grandparents might have known, was about building something lasting, owning things outright, having cushion and margin and security that wasn't dependent on everything going perfectly forever. You can still build that. It might not look like what you imagined. It might require letting go of some performances that felt important. It might mean being the weirdo in your social circle who drives an older car or lives in a modest house or doesn't do the expensive vacation every year. But the people who actually build wealth, who actually achieve financial security, are often exactly those weirdos. They measure themselves against their own trajectory rather than against curated images of other people's lives. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people you perceive as successful are performing rather than building. The house, the car, the lifestyle. It looks like wealth. But for the majority, it's actually debt disguised as prosperity. And you have a choice right now. Can't unsee it. What you do with this can't unsee it. What you do with this awareness is up to you. If this video helped you see the fake middle class trap differently, hit that subscribe button. I break down money psychology and wealth building strategy every week, cutting through the noise to show you what's actually working. Leave a comment telling me which part of this hit hardest for you. I read every single one. I'll see you in the next one.